Good morning, Bucknutters. It's Tuesday, January 6th, 2015. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5-ish, coming to you from a snow-covered Gem City in Ohio. Got a great show planned for you today. Alex Gleitman is going to join us to update us on the latest when it comes to defensive tackle recruiting. Several targets have committed elsewhere, so what does that mean for Ohio State to push when it comes to adding talent at defensive tackle? We're also going to look back at some preseason predictions made by Dwayne Long and Alex Gleitman. See how they turned out now that the season is one game left, the big game. And make sure you stick around here on Bucknuts today, Bucknutters. At 2:30, Urban Meyer will meet with the media. This is the only time we're going to have access to Coach and the team before the team heads to Dallas. Like I said, that starts at 2:30, and then virtually every key player on each side of the ball will also be made available to the media. So we'll have complete coverage of that. But right now, let's get to Alex Gleitman. There's been a lot of news on the recruiting trail recently. We know Torrance Gibson has officially said he's going to take a visit to LSU. What about defensive tackle recruiting? It seems like the available candidates are dropping off the map.
Alex Gleitman here on the Bucknuts Morning 5. Big news yesterday in recruiting. Defensive tackle Christian Wilkins from Connecticut decided to kind of shock all those fans and media members and even coaches out there following his recruitment and committed to Clemson over Ohio State, Stanford, Penn State, and Boston College, his other four schools in his top five. And you know, that was really kind of a surprising decision there by Wilkins. He was expected probably, we were hearing either Penn State or Boston College for him. We didn't think it was Ohio State, but he kept everything very close to the vest. I don't think it would have been a surprise had he picked BC, PSU, Stanford or Ohio State. I think everyone would have told you they were surprised it would be Clemson. But that leaves Ohio State looking for another defensive tackle. Neville Gallimore committed to Oklahoma. Wilkins now to Clemson. And Terry Beckner is the next guy on the list. But right now, it's going to be tough to get him away from Missouri. Ohio State does have an official visit at the end of the month, January 23rd. That's going to be a big one as he visits Missouri the next week. That's his hometown school. And right now I'm hearing, that while there was some chatter about Florida State, that Ohio State would actually have the best chance to sway Beckner away from his home state school in the Tigers and make him come to Columbus. He's never been to Ohio State, but he does have a good relationship with Chris Ash as well as Larry Johnson, and that's going to be a big official visit. Outside of that, I do think Ohio State does want to bring in another defensive tackle in this class. They got Robert Landers. They have Josh Alabi. They have Jayshon Cornell who could play inside. They have Draymond Jones who could play inside in this class. But I am hearing that they do want to bring in another defensive tackle. So look for some names maybe that, maybe some guys that they looked at earlier in the process that they could go back in on, or maybe even some new names that have emerged late. But Ohio State, look for them to add another defensive tackle by the time National Signing Day comes around.
Okay, Bucknutters, as promised, a quick look back at some preseason predictions that were made. It was a Bucknuts Morning 5. I was joined by Alex Gleitman and Dwayne Long. It was August 28th, 2014. A little bit of frame of reference. We did know at that point in time that Braxton Miller had been injured. We did not know, for example, that Noah Spence wouldn't be in the mix. What I did was, before the show, I sent the guys a series of questions, and they answered. And then we kind of sat down and compared notes. So I'm going to go through them now. Hindsight being 2020, I thought this might be kind of interesting. First question, the offensive MVP will be Dwayne's vote, J.T. Barrett, Alex, Ezekiel Elliott. Not sure you can argue with either of their choices. Number 2, defensive MVP. Both chose Adolphus Washington. What was interesting was one of the main reasons was the attention that Noah Spence and Joey Bosa and Michael Bennett were going to attract, kind of opening the doors for Adolphus to have a great season. I think he's had a great season, or a really good season. I wouldn't say he was a defensive MVP. Joseph Bosa has that locked up. I think Adolphus has become an incredibly key player, given the backup situation there. The third question was asked, what is the offensive weakness of the team? They agreed again, offensive line. Ohio State started the season with 0 offensive linemen in the same spot as last season. Only Tennessee had a less experienced offensive line in Division I football. So anyone who questioned Ed Warner's ability to get people ready to play offensive line can look at NFL rosters for 3 rookies who started, including one, Andrew Norwell, who wasn't even invited to the Combine, but will be starting this weekend in Seattle. Defensive weakness. Both thought it was going to be the linebacker position. The breakout player on offense, Dwayne chose Johnny Dixon. The freshman from Florida, of course, had his season ended prematurely. We're looking forward for a big breakout season from him next year. Alex chose Corey Smith, who spent much of the season in and out of the doghouse, dropped some key passes in some big games, did rebound to have a nice finish to the season, and has been a great contributor on special teams. When you see Corey Smith and Briante Dunn as the first two guys down covering a kick, you know buy-in is at 100%. The breakout defensive player, Dwayne, again went off the board here and chose Eric Smith, the freshman safety from Glenville. Never really got into a position where he challenged for a starting role this year. Alex, on the other hand, wins the award here by choosing Darren Lee, the redshirt freshman who has been nothing short of a revelation. I could make a pretty strong argument he's the number 2 defender on the team this year behind Joey Bosa. The fact that he didn't get any postseason accolades from the conference is ridiculous, by the way. Next question was which non-senior Buckeye player or coach will be spending his last season in Columbus. Dwayne chose Noah Spence for good reasons, though, thinking the NFL would crave his outside pass rush. And Tom Herman, for obvious reasons, dude could coach. There was a feeling that he was going to be in position to show off by training J.T. Barrett. That apparently worked out to our liking. Alex had a really interesting one. He chose Cardale Jones. There was some real thought, let's not forget, that Cardale might transfer once he lost the job to J.T. Barrett in preseason. This was recorded right around then, so the thought that Barrett moved past Jones on the depth chart and was a younger player had a lot of people thinking Cardale would transfer. I think it's fair to say now we're glad that didn't happen. And as for the coach, Alex wisely also went with Tom Herman, and of course, Alex and Dwayne were right about that, as Tom Herman will be taking over the Houston Cougars program once he helps Ohio State win a national championship. The next question was make a prediction that nobody sees coming. I'm not sure Dwayne got something that nobody sees coming, or nobody saw coming for that matter, but Dwayne's prediction was that Ohio State would beat Michigan so bad that Brady Hoke would be fired. Now, as it turns out, Brady's lot was filled before Ohio State got a chance to throw more dirt on it, which they did, and Brady is toast, and we've got James Harbaugh in town, so that should be fun. Alex was also correct, unfortunately, in predicting that Ohio State would lose a game before November. His choice was actually going to be the Penn State game. The last question that dynamic duo was asked was, before Braxton got hurt, I expected Ohio State to blank. Now I expect them to blank. Dwayne basically said he expected them to go 9-3, 10-2 would be a great season. Alex, on the other hand, was similar. Said 11-1, maybe 12-0, 10-2 would be the floor with Braxton. Without him, the floor was 8-4, more likely 9-3. 10-2 would be great. Anything better was gravy. He also said, I don't think they will be in the playoff at 10-2. Well, it turns out they weren't 10-2. They were 11-1. And I want to finish here because Dwayne made one comment as we were signing off. Maybe he put a positive spin on it, but it certainly turned out right. So listen to how Alex and Dwayne finished off the show in late August. And what Dwayne said as we signed off turned out to be positively ominous.
Post Braxton Miller, I think, the floor is probably, for most programs to lose a quarterback of Miller status, I think a floor of 8-4 would be really good, but for Ohio State fans, that wouldn't really be acceptable. But I think that's the floor, but I think it's more likely they go either 9-3 or 10-2. I think those 9-3 would be a solid year. 10-2 would be a good year, and as Wayne said, anything more than that is gravy, and it's a fantastic year, and you really have yourself a true quarterback of the future in J.T. Barrett if that's the case. I still think they're going to compete for the Big Ten East, absolutely. I think they still have a shot at winning the Big Ten title if they can get that Big Ten round, but I don't think that they will be in the playoff as a 10-2 team.
I don't think there's any chance at making a playoff at 10-2. I believe 11-1. It's still a possibility. If they go 12-0, and it is possible, we have to look at the talent on this roster and say if these guys mature, it's the only missing element. There is more talent on this roster. I would go so far as to say since John Cooper's heyday. He was such an aggressive recruiter, just like Urban Meyer is. He was more aggressive at it. As many great classes as Jim Tressel had, these guys are just more aggressive, getting more elite talent in than Jim Tressel did. More guys that everybody was recruiting nationally. There's so much talent here right now. If these guys mature, I'm telling you,